This is for
I've been
the
ready for
TV
half a
second
minute.
stormwater fund.
Yeah, you and me both can.
Yeah,
You get the money?
That's enough.
yes, that's what he's doing.
But you guys have a meeting in the back.
The gas station.
All right, we'll call to order the regular meeting of the Common Council of the City of Platteville on Tuesday, May 13th, 2014, and start with roll call.
Amy Seabold. Here. Mike Dunn.
Here?
Barbara Doss.
Here.
Barbara Stackhausen.
Here.
Dick Bonin.
Yay.
Ken Killian.
Here.
Nylee Nichols.
Here. We'll start first with a special presentation from Ed White regarding an EDA grant.
Good evening. Second meeting in a row. I'm just here checking up on Amy, former colleague. No, I wanted to share some good news, not only with the council, but the citizens at large. That is, we received notification late last week of approval of the EDA grant that you contracted regional planning to write last fall. So that went in, and contingent upon a few technicalities. The award was granted for $800,000. So you'll have now $1.6 million to finish the project in the industrial park. For the public's knowledge, this is an additional stormwater pond to manage the 39 acres that was purchased, the Rosemeyer property, to do the sanitary sewer, storm sewer, water lines, and streets, curb and gutter, extending Vision Drive over to Phillips. So the parcel will be fully able to be occupied, which is good news because the last EDA grant that we wrote, there was a hesitation, caveat that this one was kind of pushing it a little bit because the last grant that the city got was in 2010. EDA does not typically fund the same community within a 10-year time span. That was for also a stormwater pond to manage 31 acres in the existing park. But due to the great success, I believe, of that project, we sold 20 acres, the Emmy Roth project. That was one of the primary reasons. I've spoken to them. That was one of the primary reasons that they located here, was that they didn't have to do their own stormwater management, which would have cost them a couple $100,000. And so that was a big incentive to come to Platteville. And so the fact that 2/3 of the land that project was for is already occupied, and prospects for the rest of it made this project kind of appealing to EDA. So there's a lot of success there. The other story I wanted to share here is that I normally send the grant in a couple of weeks in advance to get some feedback from the folks in Chicago unofficially. And so I called down there to my contact and said, well, I want to send you this grant. Please give it a review. Let me know if there's any comments. She said this was 1st of March. The deadline was March 13th. And she says, well, I assume you're sending this in for the June deadline. I said, no, it's for the March deadline. Oh, she says, that'll never get approved. She said, there's always engineering problems with these things. It's going to get kicked back for engineering. I said, well, I've got confidence in our engineers, Delta 3 Engineering. And sure enough, there were 2 questions. Neither of them had to do with engineering. So you've got a great team in place. Dan has worked on other projects with EDA. I think that helps. He knew exactly what they were looking for. There were no questions, short in the time span. And she had to eat her words, which is always nice when you deal with EDA or a federal agency. EDA, by the way, is the Economic Development Administration. It's a division of the U.S. Department of Commerce. So their main goal is to do these kind of projects to build municipal capacity for industrial growth primarily, and to do strategies and other things. So the second thing I wanted to just touch on tonight, you should have at your tables the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, which is one of the primary purposes of my job at regional planning. is to put this document together. This is a 5-year plan, and this is the next 5 years from 2014 through 2019. Eileen from your council serves on that committee. It's a region-wide 5-county strategy committee. Eileen also serves on our Board of Commissioners, so she's wearing a couple of hats there. But if you look through this, there's lots of data on anywhere from agriculture to housing to employment numbers, types of jobs we have in the region, what jobs create the most other jobs, the multiplier effect, all kinds of nice economic data. Chapter 5, which starts, I believe, on page 37. 38. Chapter 5 is the action plan or the goals and objectives for the next 5 years. There's a lot of them in there, a lot of action steps, which has set this plan apart a little bit from past plans, that there are a lot more specific action items, objectives, and steps in this one. Many of these goals, in fact, the first 3 were taken, in fact, all 5 of them were taken from the Grow Southwest project the regional planning did, which was a 3-year planning project that involved over 100 people from Southwest Wisconsin in 9 different areas. And so we kind of gathered those, ran them through the committee, and these were the goals set for the region. So take a look through that. Anytime you have any questions, feel free to give me a call at Regional Planning. We're just across the street, so you know where I live. Any questions?
I don't have a question, Ed, but I really want to compliment you because you've done excellent work through Southwest Wisconsin Regional Planning for the city. I really appreciate it personally, and every citizen in Platteville should really be appreciative of the federal money that has been brought to our community as a result of your efforts.
Yeah, it's that industrial park is now, this is the 4th project in a little over 25 years that EDA has done in that park. So, and we are still perfect. Amy helped me write a couple of grants. In fact, she wrote the bulk of the last Platteville grant. So we're a perfect 12 for 12 in 6 years. So
While we don't have a big gift, I think we should at least apply.
Applaud.
the big check will be coming.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Ed. Thank you. Good news.
Where do we deposit it?
Next item, consideration of the consent calendar. The following items may be approved on a single motion and vote due to their routine nature or previous discussion. Please indicate to the council president if you would prefer a separate discussion and action. A is minutes of the April 15th organizational meeting and the April 22nd regular council meeting. B is payment of bills. C, financial report for April. D is appointments to boards and commissions, and the appointments this evening, I am just reconfirming the information that was given to the council members at the last meeting, which is the 2014 council appointments. You all, I hope, still have your copy of that. If you don't,
Nope.
you don't have one? Okay, then there you go, Dick.
I wasn't here.
All right. And the other item is, or 2 other appointments to Board of Appeals, ET Zoning. Brian Chapman for a 3-year term, and the Freudenreich Animal Care Trust Fund, Angie Donovan for a 3-year term. So those are the other appointments. Licenses for 1- or 2-year operators licenses are in your packet, and permits also in the packet. ALS organization for a walk on September 27th, 2014. And the Platteville High School is having a homecoming parade on October 10th, 2014, so they're really ahead of the game here. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
I have a motion and a second, and we'll vote.
I have a minor change.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's under the April 15th, 2014 minutes.
All right.
And somebody else called the meeting to order rather than me. This is from last year. Second line.
Yeah, I see it, Ken, and I read the thing and missed that completely. So,
So who called? You did, didn't you?
I did.
You did, right?
yes, I did.
Yeah. Have to give you credit.
No, thanks. So, your motion is to
Well,
reflect that change?
just a friendly change. That's-
Okay, all right. And the second agrees with that? All right. So with that change noted, we will vote.
Seaboth,
Yes.
Den,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Stockhausen,
Yes.
Bonin,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes,
Nichols.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next item is citizens' comments, observations, and petitions, and we have a few comments tonight. I'm going to ask first if Howard would mention about the citywide pickup.
Yes, thank you. Citywide pickup will be next week. It will be on May 19th and 20th. It'll be on your normal garbage day. Each household is allowed to put out a pile 10 feet by 4 feet by 4 feet of garbage. There's, as always, unlimited recycling. You also can put out yard waste and scrap metal. You cannot put out any tires, appliances. You cannot put out electronics as part of this. Electronics are recycled separately, and there is a charge for that through Faraday or other places. You can't dump any hazardous waste or anything like that. So, but it's for single-family and duplex households, Monday and Tuesday, normal garbage day next week.
Any questions on that, anyone? Okay. We have two informational items from Luke Peters. So Luke, if you'd like to come up, and the artistic bike racks and the Playful City.
Well, we'll start with artistic bike racks. I'm just here to announce that we've started the installation of the artistic bike racks in downtown. This is part of the Main Street Sustainability Committee and also partnered with the Platteville Safe Routes to School Committee. Earlier this year, we received a grant of $1,500 from the Community Fund to help fund these racks that will install racks at the Platteville Police Station and the United States Postal Service. So the artistic racks are there. There'll be 2 on Main Street, and then we also had 1 submission from the middle school, which is selected, and the high school is working on completing that installation that will be up at Legion Park. We have an event kicking off those installations, which will be May 16th, this Friday, starting at 5 o'clock to be a walk to show everyone the new racks. At 6 o'clock, there will be a bike ride where you can take place in a community bike ride. And 6:45, there'll be a party in City Park for music, food, and other fun. So,
How many, one up for sure?
how many are up currently? There are, I believe there's only 1 not up, so I believe there's 4 up right now. There's 2 not up, I'm sorry. There's 1 not up at Livingston State Bank that they're gonna be making that one a little bit more safe. There's some sharp edges on it currently. And the one at the middle school is not yet completed, and that will be going up at Legion Park later on. So there's currently 3 in place, 2 still yet to be put in place.
So how many on Main Street? 1 right now?
There is 1 on Main Street right now, currently,
I
correct?
thought I'd seen 1.
Yep.
are
So
these made by different people?
they are. There's a competition to design them, and then there's a committee that selects the winners from those designs to then construct them. They're given partial payment for the construction and partial payment upon delivery.
I've been going through the bills, I found at least 3 listed.
That would probably be accurate. 3 were paid for from the park impact fees, with the other 2 being paid for by that grant mentioned earlier.
Luke, one question. With the installation, are they installed so when you are parked there with your car and you open your car door up, you're not gonna hit them?
I can tell you that our public works director was out there looking at that, and along with the business owners and our Main Street, Jack Ludke was out there as well to look at proper placement of those racks. So they attempt to.
Can they be removed during the winter months?
Could they be?
Oh, yeah, they're just bolted.
I'll go to Howard.
Bolt them down.
They're bolted down to the concrete. Technically, I guess they could, but we don't want to rebolt them every spring. So the last ones we've left there over the winter time.
I have seen one issue at Steve's where there was an ambulance call there with a person laying in the street, and you could see that all the snow had been removed except where the bike rack was, and it was a warm day, had melted, and then it froze and went out there, and they had slipped and fallen right there. So we're gonna have to be careful so we can get snow removed around those things.
Thank you.
Okay. The second thing I have today is about the Playful City USA nomination. Just today at 2 o'clock, it was announced that Platteville was among 212 nominees for Playful City USA. This is a recognition that Platteville is committed to play both this year, and it's recognition for the past work we've done of providing access to play for all citizens. Like I said, it's we're joining the likes of New York, Washington, D.C., Austin, San Francisco, and Platteville is on that list as well. So this is a great recognition. It doesn't pay anything, but it does, like I said, it gives us a competitive advantage when we're applying for grants and other things for future playgrounds and things like that. So it's a great thing. We applied for it, we got it, very happy. So I'm just announcing that to you today.
And I know that you actually wrote the grant.
I did, I wrote the application.
The application, yeah, in this
Yes.
case, so thank you for doing that.
That's 1 for 1?
I think we applied in 2011.
The other person who's asked to speak is Dan Winch. Mr. Winch, I will tell you that on the information and discussion portion of our meeting this evening, we do have a memo that will be available, so if you want to speak now, you certainly may, or you may wait. All right. All right, the other thing is May 20th, everyone on the council knows we have a special council meeting. It's at 4 p.m. And did we decide it was going to be in the community room at the police station? Okay, so that's where the meeting will be. Don't come here. Go to the police station at 4 o'clock a week from today. And we will have some sub sandwiches around 5:30 or so that you don't faint from hunger.
We
And-
gonna be that long?
I don't know. It'll be dinner time when we're there, I'm sure, so.
Shaking your head, yes, Larry.
Yep.
And I have a memo I'll hand out about that afterwards, because we're asking the council to come up with some big ideas, so. I don't have anything else, and I don't have anybody else who's asked to speak, so we're on to reports in your packet, the committee reports, and there were a bunch of them. Airport Commission, Nichols, I have nothing to add. Commission on Aging, Bonin.
Nothing, can't even find it.
Community Safe Routes Committee. I have to change the name. There's a former council person's name there. Historic Preservation Commission,
No addition,
Housing Authority, Killian,
no addition,
Museum Board, Barb Stockhausen?
Nothing
No additions,
to
okay.
add.
Parks, Forestry, and Recreation, Killian.
I have no addition to that one.
Plan Commission, I
No
don't
additions.
think we have anything to add, okay. Police and Fire Commission, Den.
No, nothing
Okay.
to add. Nothing to add.
Redevelopment Authority, Dawes.
Nothing to add.
Water and Sewer Commission, Killian, Steiner, and Bonin at the time that these minutes were.
No addition.
All right, then we're gonna
Same
go on
here.
to other reports in your packet. Airport financial report for April, city attorney itemized statement, water sewer revenue and expenditures for April, and department progress reports. Any questions or comments on any of that information?
Actually, if I could, I'd like to add that we're gonna open book is tomorrow, afternoon from 1:30 until 4:30 up in the assessor's office, just right
Okay.
across the hall.
1:30 until 4:30?
Yep, if anybody has any questions on their, assessment, this is the chance that they can go and talk with the assessor about it.
Okay. All right, hearing no other questions or comments, we'll go on to the action items. The first is Resolution 1419, terminating TIF District Number 8. Larry, I guess if you want to touch on that?
We're very happy to provide the opportunity for the city council. TIF District Number 8 has reached the conclusion. It's a TIF district for the city of Platteville that was created in 2007. It has created about, let's see, the total revenue received from taxes far exceeds what we anticipated. It's over $222,000 in TIF revenue from 2013. What we found is that TIF 8 equalized value has increased over $7,300,000 since it was opened in 2007. And at this point, staff is recommending that we close TIF District number 8 and that it become part of the city's general tax roll.
Questions? All right, motion?
I make a motion, we adopt resolution number 14-19, terminating TIF District number 8 and having it become part of the general tax roll.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. We'll vote.
Seaboth? Yes. Den?
Yes.
Doss?
Yes.
Stockhausen?
Yes.
Bonin?
Yes.
Killian?
yes,
Nichols?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next item is contract 1114, pool repairs.
Thank you. We had spoken about this at the last meeting, but what we're looking at is for final approval to award contract 11-14 for the pool repairs to install variable frequency drive units for the existing pumps and to repair deteriorating joints in the pool floor and walls. We had one bidder, Schmidt Electrical, for the swimming pool repairs, and one bidder for the joint crack repair. And we recommend that we award contract 11-14 VFD installation to Schmidt Electrical at the bid price of $29,498.32. And the second part, the swimming pool joint and crack repairs to Badger Swim Pools at the bid price of $31,570. And what that means is that the costs are listed here in this memo as being over budget by a little over $1,000. However, we do have a $2,000 grant that was not included in this, so we do just come in under budget then.
That's a rebate, not a grant.
Rebate.
Luke, I understand that there's some types of controllers that are involved with the new various speed drive that could be very worthwhile for us. Could you help me with that?
Sure. The base bid that came in includes just a basic controller, which basically allows us to set the operation for the VFD at one level, and it would just simply maintain a specific flow rate at that one level. The additional bid, I believe, is the controller you're talking about. That's an additional bid of $4,820 for a BEX 5 controller system. The BEX 5, the advantages of that is it allows you to more fully program and optimize your flow rate. For instance, you can actually lower the flow an additional amount when the pool is closed. You still have to maintain enough flow to provide your makeup. The pool is going to be doing filtration throughout the night to handle the crowds, but you're able to actually lower the flow even below what your normal state standards would be when the pool is not fully in operation. And that's what that additional main benefit of that additional controller is. The other benefit with those additional controllers are that they allow us to access the pool chemical information, your ORP, your pH, and our flow remotely. So our pool management company, myself, or our maintenance staff would be able to access that from anywhere, basically, which would just be an additional way of controlling and ensuring that we're not wasting additional chemicals or things like that. So that was not initially included in the staff recommendation, but that's the advantages of that system.
Thank you, because I was looking at that whole package, and it looked like it makes a lot of sense to add that to the package, because then we'd have a complete package. We wouldn't just have a partial package. This way, we wouldn't be piecemealing as we go, and it'd be nice to have everything all up to what we really need, so we wouldn't add something down the road. So I think that'd be an excellent addition at this time.
But it's not in the budget, is that correct?
That's correct.
It's not in
is
the
some
budget.
money.
I do have some suggestions of where we could actually look for that if you're looking to do that within the budget. Because we have already done the work up at the pool with the boiler, we're projecting some savings from there, which would come out of our utility bill. The projected savings from that are $545.20. Very specific, which is just my calculation, so ignore that, the specific details. The projected savings with the VFD would be $2,674.32. And then we also are going to experience some savings on our water bill this year, in that we're reducing a valve up there. Currently, there's a 3-inch pipe which leads to a 4-inch valve. And based on the water bills, you're currently charged at whatever valve size is on there. So we're looking at reducing that valve down to the 3-inch size, so we're only charged at that, which is projected to save us another based on here on out, that's projected to save us $2,408. It'll actually be more over the course of future years, but that amount is projected to be there. We are planning on spending some of that savings on the valve reduction size to actually have that work completed and fix a small leak that's in that same area. The bid for that was $1,400, so we're planning on using that money, but that still leaves us with some extra money left over if we were looking to add that extra chemical controller. Currently, the normal bid was where were we at?
29.
I'm sorry, I'm losing my. Okay, I'm gonna go beyond that. If we're with all this savings recognized, we would be about $529.48 over budget based on the projected savings that we're planning on having up at the pool. However, I wouldn't, if you do choose to do this, I wouldn't recommend you count on that, because it could be an extremely cold summer where you're going through more heat. That is projected savings. So if we were looking to do the controller, I would encourage it to be taken from the Carmen A.J. Binding Trust, money that was previously allocated towards the park or the Platteville Parks Endowment Fund. Take any money that is not actually realized from the savings from that account, which would take a budget change and a 2/3 vote. So.
Thank you very much. I think that's a good idea.
So you're saying that could be done in the future? It wouldn't have to be done with this bid, or it would have to be done with this bid?
It wouldn't have to be done with this bid. However, that they are going to be installing a separate controller. So the difference between that controller and this controller is that $4,820 amount. So we would essentially be losing that amount of that original controller that gets installed if we don't do it all at the same time. It can be done. Like I said, it will save us additional money in the future as going forward if we do install that additional controller, in that we are able to more fine-tune the VFD. But you're right, it does not need to be done to operate the VFD. It is an optional add-on. It's up to you, it's up to council discussion if that's something that we want to explore at this point.
So this other controller you're talking about is something that won't be used after we go to this $4,800 one?
The extra controller would not be used if we were to, this $4,800 controller would replace that one. We currently lease a chemical controller, and that controller is not capable of controlling the VFD. So what this additional bid is buying an upgrade to our chemical controller, which would also control the VFD. So it would essentially do both. So in the future also, we're currently under a really good contract with our pool company in that they're losing money on us most years. So I can't tell you there's going to be a savings when we renegotiate the contract, but like an actual reduction in our contract. But it will be less if we install this new controller, because we will no longer be leasing a controller, and it would provide more options for us in the future in terms of, chemical management.
So this, I'm gonna call it temporary controller then, what's that gonna cost us?
That was included as part of the original bid price, the $29,000. I don't have it broken down as to how much that actually costs.
Nor do I, and that would be probably helpful for you now, and I apologize, but I don't have that information.
I had the opportunity, Luke helped me out here with talking with one of the gentlemen who was in charge of the University of Wisconsin Aquatic Center up there, and explained to me how a lot of this stuff works and what the benefits are, and we discussed the controller. And by putting it all together in one package, it makes more sense than adding it on later. This guy is very knowledgeable. you can maybe give a little bit more information about this gentleman, because I don't remember everything, but he really knows, probably one of the best anywhere around.
Yeah, Tom Carrico is the head of the company that currently we're under contract with to manage our pool. They're our chemical company essentially. Tom is on the Wisconsin committees that actually write the Wisconsin statutes for both the pool safety and chemical. I guess it's all pool safety, chemical safety. He essentially wrote the Iowa bill because he's formerly from Iowa. As I mentioned last time, he's the pool managed company for the University of Wisconsin, Madison, the Green Bay Packers. So, I mean, he has extensive knowledge on this. VFDs, like I said, we're on the forefront of this. This isn't something that every pool has in existence and we're fighting to catch up. We would be on the forefront of this. There are a number of pools that are doing it. But having said that, it's not new technology that we're doing. It's adapting an existing technology for a new use in our pool.
Thank you.
That's what I'm trying to get at here with this 4800 versus this first controller. If we just go with this 4800 one and not the first one, that's what I'm trying to find out is where we're going to be at there with money.
Are you saying if we go with, if we do not install, if we
go with the additional bid thing here of the pool controller,
Yep.
instead of this, I'm going to say it again, the temporary one, would we be ahead if we went with this 48 right off the bat instead of waiting?
define, it's hard to answer your question because ahead is are you saying would we have money to do it? Or
Would it save us money?
In the long run.
in the long run? Of course, yes.
Do you know how much?
In order to optimize the VFD, if the VFD is optimized over a 10-year period, in addition to what you're already spending, our calculations are about $13,000 ahead in 10 years. If that's with the extra controller. Because you're getting into some projections, it's tough to tell you exactly where you're going to be off because it depends how much we're going to be able to throttle back the pool at night. We may need to leave it up throttled a little bit higher than some of the projections, just simply to do the filtration that's required. It makes it. I mean, it's a best guess, I guess, at this point.
It'd have what you're saying then is that it basically have a 4 or 5 year payback.
We have about a 3.5 year payments or payback period that we're projecting currently.
Okay,
I would like to see this in writing. I mean, I understand that this may be a good expenditure, but, we're all sitting here listening to new information and then expecting to go ahead. I don't know how this affects the amount of money left in something. I don't know how, Amy thinks it's a 5-year payback. You say it's a 3-year payback. Somebody else here's a 7-year payback. I don't know. I'd like to, see this written out. I guess the set and instead of just being verbal. There's been too many times that I've voted for something presented verbally and frankly got stung on it later. The second question is, I want to know the timeline for this. Is this going to shut the pool down for any of the summer?
We are pushing up on deadlines at this point. I told him I should have an answer tomorrow morning for him, on which case he would give me a more exact timeline for installing it. In order to receive the grant money, we have deadlines for that as well, which are approaching quickly. In terms of installing it, it doesn't take long to install the VFD. It can be installed in the evening, according to Tom with this company. So it's not something we need to shut down the pool to install. Our hope was to have it installed before the start of the pool. We're pushing those deadlines with getting the VFD shipped, getting everything installed, the electricians to work. The goal was to have it installed prior to June 7th with the opening of the pool, and that's what was initially written in the contract. A couple days ago, I got an email from Tom saying, where are we at on this? I'm going to have a hard time meeting this deadline unless we get a decision soon. I understand.
Question, Luke.
Yep.
Can we proceed with the majority of the project, but then finalize a decision on that one component? I guess it would take 2 more meetings, though, to get to that point.
Oh, it'd only take one.
We could do one because it's considered the discussion, okay. So in 2 weeks,
The problem with that is if you went ahead and installed that, you're already installing a controller, so you're paying for a controller
Well,
that you
I was
don't
wondering
need.
if we can go ahead and like move forward with the agreement that they've contracted with us, but not necessarily do the install until we finalize what kind of agreement we want.
There's,
They
aren't
would
there
have to
actually
pay-
two contracts? There's
Yes.
contract 1114-2, which is swimming pool repair, joint and crack repair.
That's in the
When will
fall.
that be done?
That's also scheduled to be done before the,
No.
oh.
That we pushed to
Oh,
the fall.
that's, I'm sorry, you're right. That one was pushed to the fall because they could not guarantee that that would be done before the June 7th deadline.
And where is that timeline included? I mean, that was another thing that's missing from this, is there was no, I mean, I'm reluctant sometimes when there's not information about what the deadlines are.
The initial deadline on the VFD was, and Howard, you might have to help me out here. It was the late
May.
late this month was the deadline for the VFD. The bidder for the pool crack repair said that they would not bid if we could not push that deadline back to next year. In my opinion, that's a great thing anyway, because it allows us to have time for the ceiling to dry before you're rushing to fill the pool and waste. I mean, if something happens there where you're not fully dry on your ceiling, you just wasted a lot of money. So I think doing that work in the fall is worked out in our favor. The VFD, I mean, we're really pushing up on the deadline with pool opening and the grant. And I don't know either. Is it possible to do the base bid and then add that on later? That's a question I'd have asked
You
ask
could-
Tom.
You could do that, however, I would not be able to guarantee that the cost, that 4820 would be the cost, because what he did was he included the cost of the first controller in that initial 29,500 bid. And what he did was he said, I'm deducting the cost of that temporary controller, as Counselor Bonus was saying, and then I added the cost of the new controller, and the difference in all of those is an additional 4820. So what we're saying is that if we do the base bid now and then wait to do it in a few weeks, my guess is that 4820 would no longer hold, and that it would be an additional amount over that 4820 because we're paying for the temporary controller and then having them come back in later and do that.
So you're saying they're giving us credit for this, what I'm referring to as temporary? And that
Yes.
4820 is what's left after the credit?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. You finally got my question answered.
All right, folks, I think we need to make a decision here. It appears that we're running up against a timeline if we want to have this put in before the beginning of the swimming season, although that could be July, the way this weather's going.
June 7th, it's gonna be open.
I think the crux of the matter is to accept the bid of $29,498.32. If we want to look at the additional $48.20, I think it would take a three-quarter vote. Two-thirds vote of the council, and you would have to state where the money would be coming from, and right now it looks like it would either be Luke's responsibility to find that extra money in the parks
Kent's pocket.
budget.
Really?
I had proposed that we don't count on the we're projecting a quite significant savings in our utility and refuge budget this year with all the repairs we've done, but I wouldn't count on that. I would take any amount that doesn't appear in there out of the Carmen AJ Binding Trust, and that's where that money transfer would come from, requiring the 2/3 vote. So that's what I would ask if you were to do that. That's where I would ask you say it come from, because we don't know what the weather's going to be like. We don't know.
We don't know what the weather's going to be like. We don't know
And
what the
I don't
savings
know-
are.
And that's what I'm having trouble with, Luke.
I
I don't
fully
know how
understand.
much you have in the trust, I don't know what the plans are, but I think to come to a council meeting and to suddenly say, and we'll just take the extra from this pocket over here, is not good business, because I don't have a clue. So I would make a motion, we accept the bid that includes the additional, and that Luke find it in his budget, and if he needs to come back to us later, that would be what he would have to do. So I make a motion, we accept contract 1114-1 with the additional bid of $48.20 for the BECS pool controller. And that we also accept the contract 1114-2 for pool repairs, joint and crack repair. One with Badger Swim Pools, the other with Schmidt Electric.
I second it.
So you are including the controller, the
I am.
second one.
She is including it with the instruction that it needs to come, that the Parks and Rec Director will find a place where it can be paid for, and if need be, come back to us, but right now, we're saying out of the Parks and Rec budget.
Motion is second.
We have a motion and a second. And we'll vote.
Seaboth,
Yes.
Den,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Stackhausen,
Yes.
Bonin,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes,
Nichols.
Yes.
Motion carries.
The next item is amend the February 25th, 2014 council minutes. I don't know, Jan, do you want to talk about this?
I can take that one.
Okay.
When we were looking at the, during the audit time, we were looking at the minutes for the endowment trust, the initial transfer, and noticed that in the minutes of February 25th, the text of the minutes does not match what the motion was. So I have, like to replace it with the correct language and motion. I don't know if you'd like me to read it to you, or, okay. The City of Platteville Parks Endowment Fund Binding Trust. Luke Peters, Recreation Coordinator, explained the proposed designated charitable fund agreement establishing the City of Platteville Parks Endowment Fund. Money donated to the fund would be invested by the Community Foundation for both income and growth. A portion of the earnings would be made available each year to the city to maintain, improve, or expand parks, trails, and other recreational facilities located in Platteville. A motion was made by Killian, second by Stockhausen, to establish the City of Platteville Parks Endowment Fund through the Community Foundation of Southern Wisconsin Incorporated, including an initial transfer of $10,000 from the Carmen A.J. Binding Trust into the fund, and as matching funds are received, additional money from the Carmen A.J. Binding Trust will be transferred into the fund up to $44,303.33. Motion carried 6-0 on a roll call vote, with Alderperson Doss abstaining.
Any questions on the correction? Otherwise, we need to have a motion.
I move that corrected language.
pending
I
the
make a
February-
motion, we accept the corrected language.
For the February 25th, 2014 council meeting
Correct.
minutes. Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. We'll vote.
Seaboth,
Yes.
Den,
Yes.
Doss,
I abstain.
Stockhausen,
Yes.
Bonin,
Yes.
Killian,
yes.
Nichols.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Under information and discussion, the first item is report on residential permit parking.
Good evening. The city manager asked me probably a month and a half, 2 months ago, to begin looking at some potential revisions to the residential permit parking area. I saw this as an opportunity, given the fact that I believe it has become overly complicated and somewhat more punitive than I feel it needs to be to achieve the results that we would like to achieve in that area. Based on conversations with tenants, landlords, and year-round residents in the area, I've proposed these changes in the report on residential permit parking that I've supplied to all of you. And again, I feel that the $50 citation is overly punitive. I think that the compliance with the permit parking area ordinance is overly complex, given that a lot of people misinterpret or make genuine mistakes about how to comply. I think that it was well-intentioned, and I think that it was somewhat of a, this sounds harsh, but an overreaction to what the impact of Roundtree Commons might be on residential parking in the area. And I see this as an opportunity to somewhat simplify and rein in this ordinance.
Questions?
I have a question. My first one is about wording. Your first bullet point, you say no overnight parking 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. And then in the second bullet point, you say no parking 3 to 6. I'm looking at the signs out there along Harrison Park and Valley View Park. They say, I believe, no parking 3 to 6. So are you saying that we should change it to no overnight parking, or just simply say no parking 3 to 6, which they're saying right now?
In the area of Marquee to the western city limits, no parking, even with a permit. I mean, no overnight parking in that area. There are no residences that need to be accommodated in that area. In the area that you mentioned around Harrison Park, that would be no overnight parking except with a city permit.
Well,
You're talking two different places here with the
Right.
first two paragraphs.
Right.
The second paragraph, you're talking the entire parking permit areas.
With the exception of the noted area in the first bullet point.
Yeah.
Doug,
Can you tell me why it's 3 a.m. to 6 a.m.? Why it's not midnight to 6 a.m. or something like that?
To be more in compliance with other ordinances in the city, like downtown is no parking 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. It would be more consistent.
I think the parking lots are the same too, aren't they?
I believe so.
Let me ask, sorry, Doug, let me ask you this also. Since we have parking, alternate side parking with snow, we have a date on that, okay?
Right.
From a springtime date to a fall date, okay?
Or actually fall to spring. Yeah.
Right, okay. And so we already have a parking setup like that. What's wrong with doing this permit parking on a date situation, say from June 1st until September 1st?
Actually-
We don't need any permit parking.
Okay.
Once school gets back in session, then we go back to the permit parking.
That would be something that
That would
would
simplify
be
a
up to
lot.
you folks. And again, by not having a date, it was my intent to further simplify it, that it's just year-round.
Are there some areas, because I know there's some businesses down in that area that on the weekends, their clients can't park there. But during the week, they can park from a certain period of time, with 2-hour parking.
Correct.
And,
This, what I'm proposing, would allow daytime parking,
okay,
which would address situations like rummage sales or garage sales. If somebody wanted to stop down to your house and they didn't want to park in the driveway. I mean, I don't think the intent was to prohibit short-term visitors or to require folks to have to call in for excused.
okay.
I agree with your bullet one. I think Marquee Avenue and Southwest Road should be no overnight parking, period. And so if it's, right, I don't think that that would be a change from what's there now, is it, would it? Because it says city permits currently do allow overnight parking. No. So I think that should be no overnight parking, because that's a major thoroughfare into the city, and in my opinion, to have that clear in the wintertime for snow removal is pretty critical, and for salting that hill. So I certainly agree with that. The second one about changing the entire permit parking area to no parking 3 AM to 6 AM except with a city permit.
Correct.
I'm kind of worried about that one. Because I wouldn't want our streets again to turn into parking lots for people who are, all-day parking lots for people. I think that it's pretty evident now that people have gotten used to using the bus and other things and not driving always to the campus. And so I'd like to hear somebody else's weigh in on that, but I wouldn't like to see whatever we do encourage people to resume that kind of activity.
And I understand that, but
And
Again-
I'm afraid changing this that way, I'm afraid it might. The other thing about the $50 to $20, my opinion is, and not towing, my opinion is, and from what I've seen, $20 just isn't even, I mean, it's like, so $20. It's not even, I mean, it's not even like, so it was $20, what of it? I mean, $20 is a lot to me, but I see a lot of people who, I've interacted with a lot of folks who will blow off $20 so fast that it's like, so I really don't favor the reduction. I really believe that if we want to control this parking in a way for the city, that the $50, and I understand it's punitive, but if you get a $50 fine one time and the next time your car is towed, I doubt very much whether you're gonna do it a third time. If you get a ticket for $20 and a ticket for $20 and a ticket for $20, I don't think it's gonna be a deterrent at all.
It's gonna be cheap
Related,
parking.
a related note, I was in a committee meeting last week or on campus, they're discussing changing the parking citation. Have you talked with Chief
I
Marquardt
have
about
not
it?
recently.
This would be a great opportunity for you and Chief Marquardt maybe to put your heads together, because the university was considering raising the citation because they are finding that people are potentially being repeat offenders because $20 may not be enough. But the discussion wasn't to raise it to 50 because they thought 50 was too punitive as well. But it might be a nice opportunity for the university and city to align with their citations in that region.
I just know, or have reached the conclusion that based on the number of parking ticket appeals or reviews, many of them seem to solely be filed because of the $50 ticket. I mean, like you said, Barb, $20, you've got my attention. $50, you got me mad. And $50.
I don't
right
think
na-
$20 you have my attention.
You got
Fine.
I mean, you
mine.
have my attention, but I don't think you have the attention of the majority anymore.
And I felt the same way at $10 when I proposed that we raise it to 20 a number of years ago. But a lot of the feedback we get from folks is, boy, are you gouging us? Boy, is Platteville not welcoming, or
One thing though, I think at $20, from what I see downtown with a lot of people that are down there on the weekends, the way they spend money, $20 is just a cheap parking spot in a lot of cases. Because when you look at the availability of off-street housing and a lot of the people that are renting those properties, they know they're there, but they don't use them because they can park in the street. It's easier than shuffling cars in the off-street parking, so they just say the heck with it and park in the street. So that becomes a problem. But they can, so.
I think Amy had a good idea. I think that this might be a good time to align ticketing prices.
If I could, before the second bullet point is dismissed by the city council, I guess I'd like to ask if the council would be willing to consider specific locations within the parking area. There is a hair salon, I believe, on the corner of Gridley and Straw, or Gridley and, yeah, I think it's Gridley and Straw. And I know they've had several complaints about the parking restriction on that corner. And I wasn't sure if the city council might be open to maybe making small amendments to the parking ordinance.
I would have no problem with that at all, because that's one of the particular businesses that have a problem with, because it is a salon, and I just found out from people, hey, you don't get a cut, curl, and color in 2 hours. And so now they've been getting ticketed.
Did you find that out when you had a cut curl? and
Yes, I did, but they,
color? Okay.
you notice the color, the gray they added in here? They didn't used to have gray. But yeah, and so I think for business like that, I don't see a problem with doing that at all.
I don't see a problem with it either, except now we're, once again, picking and choosing which street is going to have which parking restriction, and I think we were trying to simplify it, so I'm not real
That
sure
was-
that,
That's
that
it,
that is
exactly.
a
And eliminate the
solution
2 hour
either.
parking and go to 4 hours.
I wouldn't have a
Included
problem
on the
with that.
weekends.
Yeah, and allow it to have you on the weekend. Because the weekends, the businesses are open, that's where they had most of their tickets.
Well, you have a comment on your second bullet point, the last sentence. It also mimics to some extent current parking restrictions in Stevens Point and Rib Mountain. Do they have a permit parking system?
They don't have the permit parking feature,
Okay.
but they, I felt that that would be important to continue with for our purposes, given that the residence hall was adjacent to this area. It would discourage garaging of
I think,
cars on the city streets by people that somehow found their way there.
I think in the second bullet point, this one in parentheses is an important part of it. This change is a result of conversation with residents who live in or own property in the permit parking area. So I'm sure that you've had a lot of conversations then, being this is in here, and I think we need to pay attention to that a little bit.
And I tried to seek out people for input.
Pardon?
I positively or actively tried to seek out people for input about what we could do to make this or improve this situation.
Have we considered a survey of the permit parking? The people who, I mean, we know who have who have these permits, so have we actually considered a survey and asked them if they have suggestions? I mean, I understand that some people may have given input, and maybe they've given input more than once, but my question is that a few that are speaking for all, or is that a pervasive feeling? Do the majority of people believe that it's working well? Do the majority of people believe that it's not working well?
And I understand that, but a lot of the folks that would respond to that are ignorant of how much time Lieutenant Haas spends on these parking ticket reviews.
Well,
That's 10 minutes to a half hour minimum for each one, which
so it's
isn't-
not driven as much by,
No, it's driven by both features, or both factors.
There were some people that would have been here tonight, but they've been to council meetings before, but they were unable to make it tonight to talk about this, so we were trying to make it, and they'll be here for the next one.
Bullet point 2 is needed. I can give a couple examples as far as using parks. Valley View Park at Hickory Street says permit parking on the residential side. On the other side, for the park, it says permit parking, which means that suppose you can't use the park because you can't park on that one side. So that needs to be corrected. And then looking at Harrison Park, one side next to the park says no parking 3 to 6. The other side says permit parking and then winter ordinances in effect, which is alternate side parking. Well, to do alternate side parking, you have to go to the other side, which says no parking 3 to 6. So that's wrong too.
It's confusing.
So that's confusion. So this would solve those two situations as far as the parks.
I think it would be helpful for us to have the map again. I think there are a couple of new council people, and for us to have the map again might be useful.
I would agree with that. I was going to ask that as well, after looking at this and trying to remember which streets were affected and which ones had permit parking from such and 48 hour or whatever. I don't get the sense from our questions that we're ready to do anything on action on this next time. I think maybe the direction might be for you to talk to the university, see what kind of changes they might be contemplating, and see if they're, I don't know, on their streets too. I mean, I realize that we don't have control over that area, but if they have some ideas that we haven't thought about, possibly that we could talk about that. And then a map so that we can look at, I guess, the proposed changes and what that would mean. Maybe that would be helpful to actually have the map show these proposed changes so we could get some concept of what it is now versus what's being proposed.
And in this recommendation paragraph here, I think we all need to read that and read it real close. I know we've all read it, but think we need to pay attention, especially to the reviews that they've had to go through and the numbers that's used in here.
I would agree with you, Dick. I think that that is obviously taking a lot of police time, and I don't think that was ever, well, I know that wasn't the intent. And honestly, I've always been concerned too, when you have people coming into Platteville now for graduations and they see a permit parking only and they're going, so I park there, don't I? And, you know, so I think it's become probably cumbersome, and we knew it might be, but I think it's time to review it again.
Well, I agree with the review, but just out of curiosity, I don't see what difference whatever the university does with their parking tickets have anything to do with what we do. I mean,
can
they're not gonna
point
be
out-
writing them on the city streets, they're gonna be writing them on campus, and that's their business. Why do we care what they do?
The main reason is because if in that same location, if somebody has cheaper tickets, people go and park there illegally, which right now is happening on campus, I think, rather than parking on the city street, they're parking illegally on campus. But if the city charges less for their tickets than university, they're gonna come park illegally on the city streets,
Not when we tow them.
so. Well, if you wanna have that
Oh, absolutely.
burden, I
You need a
mean,
tow in there because some people don't listen to dollars and cents. When they can't find their car, then they learn.
Okay, any other questions for us, Doug, or I guess
Nope.
if you just wanna,
Well, I'll prep up I'll bring in the old map, as it were, and then the other one will be monocolored, because it'll be pretty much
Yep.
the whole area, so, thank
Okay.
you.
good, thanks. Utility easement termination, Cedar Hill condominium development.
I'll start that. The Cedar Hill condominium development, it's part of the 1070 West Main Street development. The apartment building is built. The first part of the condominium project is constructed. The developer is working on the next phase of the condominium portion of that development. He'd like to extend the streets, or the weight lane, the street, and the utilities for the condominiums to allow the next phase of those single-family condominiums to be constructed. He approached the city regarding existing sanitary sewer main and easement that's located on the north side of that property. The easement and main predates that development. It was installed to service the West Hill subdivision. And the development, the layout of those condominiums was obviously done around that easement, so it can accommodate the new condominiums, but it's not really an ideal situation when you look at the location of those condominiums when the city comes to the point where they have to replace that sanitary sewer main. It is in our CIP right now to have that replaced. It's not in ideal condition. And I think the developer is concerned that if he gets those condominiums constructed, there's 3 of them that would basically butt right up to that easement, that it would be a very less than ideal position for anybody living in those condominiums to have that sewer main replaced basically right at their back door. It's less than ideal situation for the contractor, whoever the city works with, to replace that main due to the close quarters. And so the developer approached us and said, well, here's an opportunity now because we're installing infrastructure to serve our new condominiums. Is there an opportunity to relocate that main and easement to coordinate with the installation of the main that we are installing? So they approached Howard to have a look at that, and there is an opportunity to relocate that main, basically to connect with the main that they're going to be installing to service their condominiums. It would actually be a cheaper option for the city to do that, so I think it's a win-win situation for us to consider doing that. Since it is a public easement and it's identified as part of this development on the plat, the city plan commission council have to agree to vacate that easement. The water and sewer commission would have to agree to the other costs of relocating that main itself. The plan commission did consider this request and they did recommend approval. There was one concern that they had, is that there is an existing home at 1155 Perry that also connects to that existing main. If that main is relocated as proposed, their lateral would also have to be relocated, so there would be an expense to do that. And the plan commission's recommendation was that the developer share in that cost of rebuilding that lateral.
Share the cost or assume the cost?
Share the cost.
Share the cost with whom?
The city, or the water and sewer.
Actually, what we said was 50 to 100% the developer cost should be, instead of the city paying the cost of that thing. We leave it up to 50 to 100%. There was a window there, but we said that if they want to remove and receive that easement, that the ballpark numbers that Howard gave us were about $60,000, $10,000 for the one easement, and then the rest of the part and cost would be approximately another $50,000. So there's $60,000 that would be required. The city would. This is a ballpark number now. Go ahead, Howard.
I have revised those. I revised those, and those are significantly revised downward. I did that for the Water and Sewer Commission meeting yesterday. Okay. The expected cost, I forgot to bring that document with me, but the expected cost would be in the neighborhood of $20,000 to $25,000. Let's see, where did I show that? Here. Yeah. My estimate to do to relocate this line and to include the lateral itself, my estimate would be about $20,000. If we waited and redid the line on the pink line here on the map, then my estimate is that would cost at least $25,000. So if the Water and Sewer Commission paid for everything, we're talking that we believe that we would save at least $5,000. Now, the Water and Sewer Commission met last night. They reviewed this. They would recommend approval of all of this, and they also voted to recommend approval of the Plan Commission's actions that at least 50% of the cost of the lateral for 1155 Perry be paid by the developer.
We also mentioned that it wasn't just that lateral, it was the cost of both of those that be paid. If you'll remember rightly, when you gave us the cost of the pink line, and then you said that lateral would come from Perry Drive down what looks like a street over there now. It's not. But that portion, you gave us two numbers.
Sure.
And you put those both together. Those two combined, whatever that cost is what we said we wanted the developer to pay between 50 and 100% of.
That's not the way that I understood the Plan Commission's intent.
That's what I understood the motion was made, sitting right here beside of me. Not you, but in the planning commission meeting.
I'd have to double check Mike, but I understood that the 50% to 100% was for the lateral for the house. That would have to be reconnected.
I didn't think that, and that's why I agreed with my vote, because it was for all of it.
Okay, I did not recall that it was for all of it.
We
I
didn't
could
get-
be wrong, but I don't think I am, but it's possible.
I think you are, 'cause we didn't get that last night.
Well, the,
Supposed to have, from my
the,
opinion.
the water, what went to the Water and Sewer Commission last night was my understanding of what happened at the Plan Commission, which is, as I just said right now, and that conflicts with what your interpretation of that motion was, and I don't know which way is correct at this point.
Okay, we'll be able to go back and check the minutes. Not
I'm
now,
sure
but
that we will.
we're-
I'm
Yeah.
sure that we
Yes.
will
Don't waste
between
time
now and the
now.
next
Yeah,
time.
we don't have, yeah, and we don't
Don't
have
waste
them.
time now, but I
Right.
mean after this.
We don't have the minutes.
Between now and the next council meeting,
Right.
we can double check those minutes and have that available for you.
Please do.
Yeah, because there's no action on this tonight.
Can somebody tell me the value of vacating this easement?
Next developer.
It's a piece of junk.
Pardon?
It's a piece of junk, for
No,
one thing.
what is the value to the city, what is the value to the developer of vacating this easement?
Because the easement has a cost associated with owning it. Like, theoretically, if we had to buy this easement right now, what would we had to pay to buy it?
And theoretically, what additional value does it give the developer if it's vacated?
I
Well,
don't
that's
have,
more, I'd say it's more benefit to the, water and sewer because it's out of the backyards. They don't have to worry about digging up somebody's backyard. They can get in from the street like everything else is. See them, like the three houses on the lower edge, 8, 9, and 10, their laterals are going to go down to the large sewer that comes down from what we put in 2 years ago or something like that, isn't it, Art?
a few more than that, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
the-
A few years ago.
Yes. Partially, the reason why this came to a head was, when our staff went through and they televised that line that's in that pink line recently, and they were very much concerned, based on the condition of that line, that even if buildings 6, 7, and 8 were built as is, we did everything the way it was in the plan, that just trying to connect those new service lines to that existing line, we would end up breaking that line because it's in such poor condition. We would be spending a lot of money putting a Band-Aid on it. But we can also try to attempt to find out a value if that's what you're looking for.
Well, that line has actually been set back, correct? It was due to be replaced, but now that's set back to what, 2019, 2020, something like that?
Originally, it was in the CIP last year for either 2015 or 16 as part of a Perry Drive reconstruction. Based on the budget, Perry Drive was pushed out of the current CIP, so that would be 2018 or 19 that it would come back in.
Okay. I have one other question. Concerning with developer costs and city costs and everything else, I talked to a gentleman who had to put in about 400 feet of sewer line and buy a pump, and also 300 and some foot of water line to his house. He had to pay for that all himself, okay? Now, if he was a developer, maybe the city would have helped him, I don't know. But because he was an individual, he had to pay for it all himself. So, when I'm looking at this, it does give an advantage to the developer to have this easement changed, which is fine. I mean, if that was my property, I'd agree with the same thing. But if that's the case, then why don't we make sure that they incur a percentage, a goodly amount of that cost? Because they're the ones that are gonna benefit from this monetarily, okay? This private individual had to do it all, so what's any different with this?
don't have,
Just a question, Howard, did the developer ask to change this easement, or was it to the conversation with the city stating that this section was not in good repair and would have been up for maybe some action next year?
it's, it was kind of a mutual thing. Like I say, staff went through and looked at the condition of the line, understanding that when buildings 6, 7, and 8 go in, we would need to connect to that line. And Irv and his staff came back to me and said, no, this is in a lot worse condition than we thought, and we would be spending a lot of money trying to fix the line in addition to tapping into it for these new buildings. We need to do something sooner rather than later. And at that time, the developer also came in and said, you know, if we could do something that would give us a little more flexibility with the placement of these houses 6, 7, and 8, we would be happy to work with you on that.
When they dig for them 6, 7, and 8, do the landscaping or excavating, would they be taken out then if we had it disbanded? Or we gotta take it out?
No.
Or do we just leave it?
When we do this, we abandon it in place. We
Okay.
just cap it at each end and abandon it in place. If it's in his way at that point, then he needs to take it out as part of his
Okay,
development.
so we're not spending any money to abandon it then?
No.
And then we're putting in 180 feet instead of 185 feet instead of whatever this pink one is in
It's roughly 300 feet.
the
The
abandoned
pink-
one?
The pink line is about 300 feet. We would need to put in a couple hundred feet because we would need to come that 185 down that street plus another 20 or so down to where that circle is
Right.
listed as manhole
Other
number
words-
3 in front of building number 5.
In other words, go around the corner.
Go around the corner, yes.
Any other questions or requests for more information before next meeting? Okay. Last item for information discussion is the snow removal ordinance review, and this came about because a citizen has commented that he believes that our ordinance is unconstitutional. And I don't know, Larry, if you want to speak to this, or Brian,
I'd like to
Maybe-
refer to Brian.
kind of give a little timeline.
Well, there's a chronology of events that's in the staff report. Every year, the staff bids out for snow removal services on sidewalks, and that was done on October 29 of 2013. And on December 16, 2013, there was a 2-inch snowfall, and 3 days later, approximately 3 days later, the city's contractor went out and shoveled walks, including walk owned by Mr. Winch. Mr. Winch indicates that he objects to the bill of $50 for the snow removal services, and he claims the ordinance, which is section 4.09, is unconstitutional, and so he's requesting the charges assessed him and a neighbor be canceled, and that the city revise the ordinance and the Director of Public Works be dismissed. And in the memo, I reference state law, a section 66.0907 sub 5, which places a positive duty on the city to keep the sidewalks clear of snow and ice in all cases where the owner or occupant of the abutting lot fails to do so. That section also allows the city to assess the property owner the expense for keeping the sidewalks clear of snow and ice accumulations, and can send the owner a bill for that. If it's unpaid, it can be levied as a special tax against the real estate. There's a process under state law to contest that levy if you want to. The city's ordinance 4.09 indicates the policy that the city follows, which is 36 hours for the owner or occupant to remove accumulations of snow and ice from the public sidewalks. If it's not removed, the city's going to do it, and it's going to bill for the actual cost plus an administrative charge, which is determined periodically by resolution of the council. Present amount of that administrative charge is $20. The staff's opinion, my opinion, is that the state law is constitutional, that the city's ordinance is constitutional, that the amount of administrative expense the city charges for processing this is reasonable, and that the claim that the ordinance is unconstitutional is not a valid claim. I believe the ordinance is constitutional. I believe the charges are reasonable. And the staff recommendation is to respectfully deny Mr. Winch's request to revise the ordinance, cancel any charges, or dismiss the Director of Public Works. Any questions?
See, no questions coming from the council. Mr. Winch, you have heard the memo that has been prepared in answer to your questions.
Asking Brian here.
Introduce yourself.
My name is Dan Winch. I live at 345 Bailey Avenue. Have you ever, when you were cleaning your sidewalk, missed a tiny spot between the cracks of your sidewalk?
I don't know what my experience in shoveling walks has anything to do with this bill.
Because if anyone has done that, if you've missed a tiny bit of snow in the crack, that's enough for the city to fine right now as the law stands. So you've heard me talk about this many times, and I will continue to do so until the law has been changed to follow the ethical standards set up by the framers of the Constitution. You are well aware that as it stands, the city places no restrictions on itself on how much, when, or why it charges to remove snow on the city sidewalks. And most importantly, it does not list a minimum amount of snow on the sidewalk before it charges property owners. So if you miss that little crack, that's enough. You can be charged $50. You can be charged whatever the city decides is reasonable. Without these kinds of restrictions, the city is free to charge up to and including an infinite number of dollars for even so much as that tiny bit of snow. I would like to believe the city would be ethical about the snow that's removed. It has been shown to me that the city feels that it can charge whatever it wants, knowing that the people cross the streets in order to use the sidewalk, and knowing that I have proven to you, I've shown you the photos of the street being more snow covered than my sidewalk was. And yet, if you're going to be using the sidewalk to cross from sidewalk to sidewalk, you're going to be more treacherous crossing the streets, and that's just completely unreasonable to try to charge an individual when the city is itself at more fault than myself in this instance. Knowing the people, there is further no way to appeal this decision. You mentioned that there's a way to appeal this. I would like to know what that is, because it has not been presented to me, this state ordinance, because as I have been told, the only way that I can get this dismissed is to come before you and have it dismissed. And if there is no such way, that completely removes the judicial branch of the government from the ordinance and makes it unconstitutional. As such, it is null and void. I am an advocate of the law of a law to keep the city sidewalks clean. Don't get me wrong. I want our sidewalks as clean as anyone. But at the same time, there needs to be clear enough so property owners, should they want to abide by the law, know how to do so. They need to say within X number of inches, so you know, if there is X number of inches, I need to go shovel this. Eau Claire, for example, doesn't even send their city plows out until there are 3 inches of snow. Knowing this, I personally think that having 1 inch of snow on my sidewalk that people can clearly walk through is not a violation of the city ordinance. You're well aware of my resolve on this matter, and I will go door to door with a petition if I have to get this law changed. And my next steps include going to the press with this matter, perhaps doing the door-to-door thing, perhaps going to a lawyer and having a class action lawsuit filed against the city. Whatever it takes to get this law changed. I think it's absolutely necessary that we do that so that we don't have this liability against property owners, which you cannot purchase insurance against. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we gonna talk about this?
My intention was to try to answer the best we could Mr. Winch's concerns. I think this memo addresses them. I understand he does not agree with the information in the memo, but unless some,
I think these pictures are self-explanatory.
well, I was
It's
going to say,
plowed, the sidewalks aren't.
yeah, unless a council member asks me to bring this back for action, to put it on the agenda for action, I do not plan to
I see no reason to waste any more
continue
of our
No
time.
reason.
to have this discussion.
I have a question for the city attorney.
Yes.
Are there any records of appeals or action beyond what has been taken here? As far as people bringing this forward that they've been charged unjustly and unconstitutional?
Did I research case law to see if there had been any specific cases on this?
Yes.
Is that the question?
Yes.
No, I did not.
Okay.
If I may, I have another question. You say that it can be.
Mr. Winch, if you're going to ask a question, I will allow you one more question because we spent quite a bit of time on this already, and I appreciate your determination. One more question at the microphone, and then we are going to go on to our next item on the agenda.
Brian, you say that I can appeal this. How may I appeal it? What is the process by which, because there is due process for anyone to be deprived of property, what is the due process?
Check WSStat section 893.72.
All right, will you email that to me so I may have that information?
It's available on the internet.
You can find it on the.
All right, well, my memory is not going to remember that, so if you could somehow get that to me, that would be appreciated.
Ask your attorney.
All right, folks, we are,
Did, last question, Mr. Winch receive a copy of this?
It's posted on our website. It's available to the public.
It's also sent to the city of Platteville. Everybody gets one of these, and it talks about residents with snow removal. It says residents must remove any accumulation of snow and ice. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's right here, real simple. Everybody gets a phone book. In the
What's in
fall of the year, we send out a letter in the water bill telling everybody about how our snow removal is taken care of. Everybody gets that information, so if you don't have it, it's because you didn't pick up your water bill.
okay,
One more nice thing to add, sorry, Eileen. The police now send out text messages too, for whatever that's worth. I got nice text messages the day of, they were sending out the cleaners. If you're signed up for Nixle, is it? Yeah, so that was kind of nice too, just as a heads up to people if they don't read the phone book or something.
we have one more person who's asked to speak. And then we are going on to the next item.
Yeah, Ed White, 295 DeBur Lane, so I'm not a citizen. This doesn't affect me anymore, but I sat in those chairs when this ordinance was written and adjusted over the years. I would just like to clarify, Mr. Winch, I've been here now at 3 meetings that he spoke at, and every meeting has talked about the infinite amount that can be charged. That's not true. Each year, this council awards a contract. It's a per square foot bid. It's how many square feet of sidewalk you have times this last year was 10 cents a square foot. That's the amount. It can't be something you guys just make up and say, well, this guy we're going to charge $500, this guy we're going to charge $50. It's not so. Okay? And just for the public, because you keep hearing, and this has been in the public comments where you guys can't respond. I've been there. I know how difficult that is. So just wanted to say I've looked it up here, sitting in the council chambers, looked up the fees, gotten a square foot charge. That's how I know what it is. It's in the fee schedules, it's in the ordinances. There's places you can look and find out or ask city staff. So it's not infinite. And I would like to ask Mr. Winch then if it could be a speck of snow on the sidewalk, show us a case where that's happened, or show you guys a case where it's been an inch or some snow in the middle of a crack. It doesn't happen.
All right. Before we go, have a motion to go into closed session, I'm going to pass out some information here about our council meeting on May 4th. We are asking council members to please come up with,
You mean May 20th?
May 20th. What did I say? I don't even know what I said, the 4th. Something you must have said must have made me think of that. All right, so May 20th at 4 o'clock. And we are asking the council members to consider big ideas for the future of the city of Platteville, and then we are going to have some nice, good animated discussion on the 20th. So, as you envision Platteville.
And you are looking for this?
Well, I said by 3 o'clock tomorrow because we need to get the packet out to everybody, so I'm hoping that all of you will dream about this tonight. And
Big ideas, big ideas meaning like
big ideas meaning like
projects or
whatever that means to you, Amy. I could have said vision, I could have said goals,
Okay.
but people sometimes then have a different perception. So we're just calling it big ideas. All right?
Eileen, I do have one other announcement as
Yes,
well.
go ahead.
I did an internet poll of council members to determine when the best time would be to hold NIMS training for our elected officials, and I've heard back from everyone except one. And so far, there's a clear majority that the time best to hold that training would be Tuesday, July 1st at 4 p.m. So for those of you who want to do the training, you're certainly welcome to come. We will set it up for Tuesday, July 1st at 4 p.m.
Okay, another date to put on your calendars.
Yep.
All right, we need a motion to go into closed session.
So move.
Can you read the, read the
Per
information.
Wisconsin statute 19.85, paren 1, paren E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specific public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. Possible land acquisition.
Is there a second? We have a motion and a second to go into closed session. We'll vote.
Seaboth,
yes.
Den,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Stockhausen,
Yes.
Bonin,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
Nichols.
Yes.
Motion carries.
We're going to
This is going to be the
head over
fastest
to that
closed
table
session
again,
ever.
folks.
Hey.
So does this mean that the school district
Wayne, I'm gonna follow you down.
Yes, it does.
No, the Saturday got changed to the 20th.
getting all these dates out?